Okay, it says the Wi-Fi is working. I don't know if it is or not. Maybe. I guess. If I have any interruptions from the internet, I'll just upload a video because I'm not really in the mood to go back and forth today. So this has been a very colorful week with a lot of insane stuff, and I have been at points surprised and at other points disappointed by some of it. Um, I should say if nobody shows up today, I'm not going to be as upset as I normally would be, or I guess annoyed, because I say I'm going to stream at 10 in the morning usually. So if I don't stream at that time, I can't expect people to pop up in droves, when I have something that's unannounced or not the way I said it would be. Oh man, guys, it is hot out here. I put a well, I said before, the weather over here changes so much to where it can be really cold and then like an hour later just really hot. I'm parked under this tree, so I'll get a little bit of shade from that. Um, on Monday, I did a stream and I was talking about how crazy it was that there was this place where I did an application, and I did an interview, and the interview was trash. They had me speak once, and I was in a group of like four people, and it was bad. Like I got to answer one time, the lady cut it off, just just horrible. Now, um, to my shock, I actually got called back about like a follow up interview, and I'll describe how that went in a little bit. I just want to make sure I always have a little bit of preamble because it's been a really crazy week. This has been one of the strangest, most bizarre, silly weeks of the year. I'd even go as far as to say we're not even halfway through the year, but I think this one's going to be hard to beat from some of the subsequent ones. And I've been filling out applications like, I mean, like the title suggests, I must be crazy. Um, I went to a job fair. I think it was on Thursday, and I went to at least six panels. So they didn't have it to where you could. I always prefer if I can just apply there instead of having to go back with the papers and you know make sure that I contact the right person. I just prefer when it's all in the same place. But yeah, it's been a really trying time. Matter of fact, I think I'm probably gonna turn the stuff on. Let me see. I don't know. We have all kind of weird stuff going on now with employers and people that you're trying to seek work from, and the rest of the industry, as you could call it. There's a person with the intercom, and they're very loud. So I'm just kind of beating myself because it's like it would be on Saturday, but more specifically, it would be when I finally am able to come up here and do my stream that they're like talking on that thing. Like that's just my luck. Of course, they show up on the day where I go over there. I don't come here any other day of the week, but they appear. I don't even come here on Monday usually. There has to be some extenuating circumstance, like people are, um, you know, all off for that particular day. But outside of that, I usually don't even show up at this place. That's why it's funny that the one day of the week where I decide to appear, they also appear. It's really comedic. I'd be laughing more if I weren't annoyed by the very real possibility that they might be interrupting the stream. I'm gonna play it on my phone and see how loud they are, and if they're too loud, I'll just roll the window up and turn the air conditioner on. I don't think I can hear them. I know you can hear that. Those motorcycle drivers, man, they love speeding and just showing you how fast they are. They love it. I should also say that I got into a pretty big argument before starting the stream, so I'm more subdued than I would say I normally am because I try to have a mask when it comes to like doing a stream or a video, uh, as to not appear like I'm just this person that's overwhelmed by things. But occasionally you do get that feeling, and really what it all comes down to is, because I'm not going to go too much into detail, but it's basically this: when people feel like they own something, it could be a person, it could be that the fact that they pay rent, they think anyone around them that is not even like not paying rent, but like not paying as much as they do, is expendable, is a lesser than, is like a just a piece of garbage, effectively. And there's someone who can be easily discarded and thrown away. And when this person has a very short fuse, as far as like, going to extremes, they will say to the person that lives in, regardless of what the person actually does, you can go get out of here, you can go live over there. And I thought for a long time about how I really saw it as weird back in January that thing happened. Like, I thought it was crazy that someone could threaten to kick another person out over a door. But I guess I'm learning in like in small doses that really it was actually weird that I was with someone who wasn't like that, and that in actuality all of these people are like this with people that they don't particularly care about. They'll just throw you away or invoke wanting to throw you away over anything. Um, so and it doesn't matter, because the difference between here and there is like, actually paying stuff this time. So it doesn't even matter what you do for the person. Um, like, you can pay a bill, you can help them in other ways, and they'll just be like, all right, we'll get out of here. They'll say what you do doesn't matter. They can do it themselves, which makes the question, why don't they? And then they'll just discard of you. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that because I don't think it's normal for people that are related to each other, who claim that they love you, who claim they care about you, all the little pretty lies they like to tell, to in a heartbeat go from, oh, you can stay here, this is your place as well, to get out of here. I just don't think that's normal. I feel like they'll try to tell you that you've done something that's really egregious, right? Oh, I said do this, you didn't do that, or maybe you did this thing where you didn't approve it by me, right? But if you really think about it, because of the number of times that they make this threat, or they imply that they want you gone or something, or will get rid of you or whatever, it's actually the reverse, where effectively in the moment they try to make it seem like what you've done crosses some line. But the problem is, because everything you do to them crosses a line, then pretty much nothing actually is egregious anymore. It's kind of like if someone, let's say, murdered an entire neighborhood of people and you put them on the death penalty, right? And the point of the death penalty, as originally conceived, was that people who do very egregious crimes should be, put to that was the idea, right? They should have their life taken for taking other lives or doing something really despicable, like something that was just a crime against humanity. But imagine how insane it would be if I said, oh, here's this person that I don't know, maybe they went to a liquor store and put some candy in their pocket, and then you find out that I wanted them to face the death penalty for doing that. You'd be like, wait a second, that's so that means that whether you murder someone or steal a little piece of candy, you're going to get the same result anyway. So murdering someone is of no lesser consequence than stealing a piece of candy, because you get the same result. And people could argue that with like prison time, but even prison time, there's like certain sentences that aren't that long, a year, 2 years, then there's 20 or 30 years, or however many life sentences you get for violent crimes. So what I'm getting at is, people, when they're like showing their outrage, they try to make it seem as if you've done something really sickening, something very sinister and demonic and evil. But in actuality, what you've done is really not that, and actually it's debatably something that if it were anybody else, they wouldn't care enough to certainly to make the threat like that, but to even be upset over it in the first place. So really, I'm just conveying here that I wish, I really wish more than anything else, almost, that the events of the last 5 years had been different as far as certain people that lived and didn't. Because I know that if just two or three demises that happened in that period were reversed or did not occur, a lot of things would be much better than they are now. I would have a lot less instability, I should say. And that's something that I think about every day because it's hard to not notice someone's absence when you see what's replaced them and how lousy their respective successor is. Also, to continue my vague illusions, I want to tell you about deceit and what I mean when I say describing something in a deceptive manner. Let's say that you have a person who doesn't have a job, and the person who doesn't have a job is asked by someone who does have a job to buy a child some food, right? And the person who doesn't have a job, they like the kid, they love the kid, but their thing is they're not working right now. They're trying to save every cent they have. They're trying to be very fiscal with their stuff because they know that there's no one who's going to come and bail them out. So um, after this is, and also it's not the person who doesn't have a job's responsibility because they don't have any children. After it's made clear that, hey, look, this person likes the kid, they love him, they want to support him, but they can't really, they'd rather not do it right now because of their employment status. And they say, hey, look, this isn't my responsibility because it's not. And then the other person says to the kid, you see the way that person without a job talks about you. You see how they speak about you. Now they're deceptive because they're trying to make it seem like the person without a job is angry about paying for the child to eat because that's not their kid, when in reality they're mostly upset by the fact that they have to pay for something while being unemployed, and that in spite of them doing this very tangible thing that assists the kid, the parent of the kid is not receptive to that. They don't care. They're like, whatever. So really they're very deceptive in that they're trying to make it seem as if the child is a burden to the person without a job, when in fact it's most of the discontent by that person is the way in which they're treated while doing something for the child. So I hope I was able to describe that in a decent manner. People really have a desire to make somebody homeless. It's very sad. And I said, when I returned or came back from my trip, I hit the ground running. I applied to 20 places within the first day of full day of being back here, which was last Thursday, the Thursday before this past one. So there's been no time lost as far as, me looking for work. But we always talked before about how difficult these jobs are when it comes to getting hired by them, how it almost at this point never is just, okay, you go and you walk in somewhere, you fill out an application, they call you back and get hired. It's never that simple anymore. You need to have certification for this. You need to own that. You need to, just all this little stuff that makes it to where the process is more drawn out and more dragged out, I should say. Yeah, I'm putting the window up. People are playing some music and it's annoying me. Oh man. First the person's talking loud over the intercom thing, now the other one is now somebody else is playing some music. Just great. What's going on with people these days? Some of them blame other people. It's never them. I guess you could say I had one person say I lack self-reflection, but I think that you could apply that to a lot of people where they'll do something that is like purposely causing someone else to be like, well, the other person made me do this. But yeah, this is just the blame era where a lot of people feel like they can just tell you, hey, you didn't do this thing we wanted, so get out of here. Oh, you didn't get a job? Well, that's your fault. You don't want one person that applies for work every time they get a chance to. You don't want a job. So it's all just the same tired tropes. But yeah, doing what I did earlier today, I'm supposed to feel bad about it, but I feel quite the reverse. I feel good. I had a fun time. I had an enjoyable time. Um, if somebody else gets mad over it, that's one thing. But I don't know, sir. Just things sometimes to me feel like they're a joke. Like they're as far like I said before. I can understand the severity of getting a job because you don't have when you can afford stuff, whatever. Like that part of it's always been serious to me. But going into interviews and sitting up there and like actually thinking, oh yeah, if I tell them about my credentials and whatever, then they'll hire me. That's the part that to me feels most like it's a gag or something that shouldn't be taken seriously. Even if I go there and I'm very serious about wanting to work there and I'm so committed to the job and blah 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 blah. I can still say that I can look at that and go, well, if I don't get it, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to go, oh my, how could this happen? Who could have seen this coming? That's not a big uh like I don't have to suspend my disbelief to come to that conclusion. Oh man. Well, like I said, I really try to make things work. I'm someone who a lot of times when I've been yelled at, I didn't say anything back. I just stopped speaking because every time someone yells, they just really want to hear themselves. Um, and I feel like you have to do something or make a point that just is extremely ridiculous to me for me to even be like, all right, listen, this is not happening or this is not what you make it seem like. You have to really just start saying insane stuff for me to push back. All right, that's enough. That's enough. But I don't know. I try hard to make stuff work. I really do. Whether it's been somewhere I've lived, some job I've had, and there have been a lot of things I don't like. Whether it's some of the people that are there as well, some of the tasks they have you do. I think I said before there was that last job I had. There was a part where you had to clean the windows, and my least favorite part about that whole job might have been that because they would have you put these towels down. So when you scrub the window, the little water soaks into the towel and catches it. And it was something I was kind of like getting used to. It wasn't a thing that I did for most days I was there. And then eventually the assistant manager broke the device that we used for that. So they had this new method where you would just wet up one towel, have another one dry. And I hated that because it wasn't as surefire. And the problem is when you're dealing with the job where they get angry at the people from the bottom, as opposed to the top, the assistant manager isn't going to get mad about how, oh, I broke this thing. So if you make any mistakes, don't worry, we can come back and fix it. No, they're going to go, hey, you didn't do this the right way, blah 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 blah. And it's like, well, I mean, hell, you broke the thing that made this done in a more proficient manner, and now I'm going to take the fall for it. But that's why I said there's certain stuff where if I feel it's really ridiculous, I'll push back against it and be like, all right, look, that's not fair. That's not right. But again, that's why I said that's not a normal thing for me. I usually try to work within the parameters of the job, and if they start getting insane or ridiculous, that's when I do my pushback. which again is not, it's not preferable. I don't like having to say to a manager, hey, look, this is not fair because of X reason. But it happens, and I really do think that there's certain stuff people can get mad at you over that's just ridiculous. And it's ridiculous because when you sit down and you talk about it and you start breaking down, you say, okay, this person is upset because of this reason. And like you could just describe it in a completely factual manner. And so I feel like someone who's just an outside be like, yeah, that's not normal. That's really weird. They're upset over that. So it's been a really trying day or so. I'm trying to get this thing out of this little plastic wrapper. These wrappers, they're really hard to get off. I had one from last week where I tried to get it off of there, and I swear that thing stuck to it like it was holding on for dear life. I mean, it was awful. Like I was peeling and peeling and peeling and peeling. I don't think I peeled that much since I was in charge of the onions. You can push back, but you don't own the company, so have to put up with that with whatever crap they put out. You know what? Understand my mindset. These jobs, in reality, they might give you some benefits. They might say, this, that, or the other, but in reality, they don't care about you. They're fine with you being fired because they know they can just hire somebody else to take the same position. So, knowing that about them, I hope you understand why, as much as I would prefer to not have conflict, as much as I would prefer to be working somewhere, if I know I have a job that's going to get rid of me over anything, and like so unconcerned with my well-being as to be like, hey, person who doesn't have anywhere else to go, oh, you didn't do something the exact way we wanted, well, next time if you come up here, I'm serious. At this point, I just don't care anymore. Like, that's what I'm saying. If they don't really care, why should we? If we know that no matter how well we do the job, they can easily find something to be like, all right, we're getting rid of you over, then what is the incentive to, and like I said, I'm not talking about purposely doing a bad job, purposely pissing them off. I'm just saying that if you're going to be treated as a lesser than, as someone who doesn't matter, regardless of how serious you are about the job, regardless of how much you put it before anything else in your life, why why put up with this stuff? Like why go out of your way for them? I think I mentioned before, I worked at a retailer. People would steal stuff. I saw one guy grab some, I think it was like a milk or something, and run down the run outside. I didn't chase after him. Of course, the manager saw the person do this, and they don't have it as a rule. You have to do that. But I'm just saying, like, even if that was a rule, I wouldn't do it. So that's why I said, if they don't care, why should we? If they'll get rid of us over anything, what is our incentive to actually sit here and be like, oh man, I should have done more for them. I should feel really bad over not helping them. I mean, my thing is, anytime you have a job, you try to do it as well as you can. But if you have some manager breathing down your neck and making threats, then to hell with it. Because, like I said, it's never made sense to me to sit here and actually care about if they don't like the job you're doing or not, knowing that they can dislike the job you're doing over anything and then just get rid of you. And then you'll be right back in the unemployment office. So that's all I'm getting at. I just don't think it's right to treat people this way. And I did this video. I didn't get that many views, but it was about Amazon spending the 14.2 million on all that anti-union crap. And I was just thinking to myself, like, it's so funny how the workers at these corporations don't matter when they're when they're like, individualistic and they're off to themselves, but when they get together, they sure do. They fight harder against these unions than anything else. Also, I'm going to give you an example of me putting my foot down as someone who's not really prone to conflict. Now, I'm someone who's only been driving regularly now since the end of December, so that's like a little bit over 3 months. I feel like I've got a pretty decent understanding of the different procedures and whatnot. Um, but again, like I'd say my biggest obstacle is probably like parking, just because a lot of times I get in the lane, I don't know how close I am to the curb or whatever. Um, but one of the things I know about is road rage, and I know that people can get very angry when they're driving. I've had a couple of instances where people have honked at me, and in every single one of those instances, I don't look at them. I don't stop and make them any dirty eye contact or roll my window down to try and confront them. I just keep driving, or look away. And I do that because, one, it's just not worth it to me to argue with somebody over traffic. But I do that also because I think in a society like the US, where we're 4% of the world, but we own almost half the world's guns, it's like 46%. I do not want to run the risk of potentially endangering myself by stoking an unnecessary conflict with someone who might happen to be armed. Now, I was driving my friend to their job this past Friday, and in the midst of us, because what happens is there's a lane that's all the way on the far left, and I typically arrive at the far right, so I have to always move over 3 lanes. And usually I'm able to pretty much do that with no issue. But in the case of Friday, or yesterday rather, it was pretty difficult. So this person blew at me, I guess, as I was like trying to stop and signal to turn into the other lane. And my friend, who's we're in front of the person that blows at me, decides to stick up his to give the finger. And I said to him, "Do not do that." And I then said, "Hey, you don't know what that person has. Don't I would, because my thing is, if they let's say responded by wanting to pull out a weapon, I'm in the car with them as well. I'm susceptible to being struck." Now, he tries to say, "Oh, it's no big deal." So, "Oh, it's just me sticking my finger up after this person blew the horn." Like, dude, Emmett Till got lynched over whistling at a woman. And then his response was, "Oh, that was a long time ago." It's like, yeah, but it's not too long ago to where the person that he was killed for whistling at is not deceased. And then I responded by saying, we literally just had a group of innocent children who did nothing to anybody in Nashville get, killed a week ago, a little bit over a week ago. So, he tries to make it seem like what he did wasn't that big of a deal, but really, it's a big deal because it's provoking. It is running the risk of possibly provoking someone to be angry and then react in whatever way that they feel like reacting. And I think it's much harder to be upset with someone that doesn't respond than someone who does. So I said to him, "Hey, look, when you're driving yourself, you can flick off people, you can, whatever, but do not do that while you're in the car with me or while I'm driving." That was me putting my foot down. And again, I'm not the kind of person that likes confrontation, but I feel like if I'm doing you a favor by taking you somewhere, right? And I have one rule that I'm trying to impose right now, which is don't do any like obscene gestures toward people while you're riding with me. I think that should be respected, or at least, adhered to. I don't ask for much, but I feel like if I'm worried about crazy people potentially doing something in response to, reacting or doing like a thing that upsets them, while I'm in the car with you and I say, "Hey, look, don't do that while you're in the car. You can do it any other time you want, just not here." I feel like that's fairly reasonable. No, I'm just saying that we live in a country with thousands and thousands and thousands of guns. One where if they pass a law in one state, you can override it sometimes in the exact same state. Um, so I really didn't want to run the risk of, and I swear I am so, uh, like I have my opinions of how people drive. People have done little stuff that I thought was right. I was coming back today from driving somewhere, and a person started pulling out in front of me, and I stopped. I didn't honk at them, but that was like kind of annoying because I feel like I have the right of way. I'm going straight, and then you just start coming out in front of me. But even just regardless of that, I always try to not say anything. And when people honk, I don't even look at them. So to be in the car with someone who's the reverse that is like, oh, there's nothing to worry about. We can just flick people off. I said, look, you do that when you're in your car, but when you're with me, do not. So I even made like I don't want to say a threat, but it was like the point of like, hey, if you do this again, I'm not picking you up again. And I said that because I take this very seriously, but also when I say, hey, can you not do this? And you're still like, it's not really that big of a deal. That's where the issue is drawn of like, hey, because sometimes you might have a person where you don't know what type of things they're into or not into, and you stumble into it and they're like, hey, don't go here or don't do this. And you say, okay, whatever. But to be like, oh, well, I don't see the big deal. Give an example. If I'm in the car with someone and I don't smoke, but just an example, I pull out a cigarette and start smoking, and they say, hey, I don't like driving someone that smokes. Can you put that out? I'm gonna go, okay, sure, fine, because they're the one driving their car, their rule, whatever. But if I pull out my cigarette, they tell me, can you not do that? And I go, oh, it's no big deal, and keep smoking. Then I am not adhering to a very basic request, which is you can smoke anywhere else you want, just not here. So people have they have a thing where it's like if you explain, like, you'll ask them to do something, and even if you explain it and say, hey, look, I just don't like this because of X, Y, and Z, they'll still be like, well, I don't see what's so problematic about it. And I hate that so much because it really shouldn't even come down to having to like justify it. Just if you don't want this in your car, you should be able to say you don't want this in your car. But whatever. They'll talk like I'm crazy. And this leaf just randomly fell from the tree and knocked across the front window. It's been a really long day. I think I might go home and go to sleep. I've been driving a lot. I have to go and get some water, and that's going to be something that's really heavy to lift. But outside of that, it's most of my tasks for the day have been completed. But like I said, we're really in an era where people feel like if you live under them and you do one thing they don't like, they can tell you to get out. Just go away. And it doesn't even have to be something obscene, like it could be over a door. It could be over taking somebody to an educational facility. Uh, I mean, it's incredible to me just like how tiny the fuse is for people with regard to like if someone lives with them supposed under their roof and how little they can put up with or they'll put up with before they start making threats. God's Merchant says, yeah, I hate people who don't that it shows how close-minded they are, who don't think that it shows how close-minded they are. Well, I'm just saying that this when you drive around people, and let's say you drive for like an hour, that means you're probably going to drive around dozens and dozens of strangers, people who you've never met before, you don't know the names of. and most importantly, you don't know what they have in their car. You don't know what's in there. They could have a machete, a knife, a pistol. So that's why I said when you're driving around these people and you do something that maybe they don't like get turned in the lane or whatever, and one of them blows their horn or whatever, my recommendation is simply to ignore them and keep driving, which is what I do. Um, but to sit there and like stick your finger up at somebody because they blew at you in an era where there's guns everywhere, I just don't think it's wise. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of stuff I'll get upset over as far as like if I think it's ridiculous, but I've never, even when people have done stuff in traffic that's upset me, I've never felt compelled to, in such a like blatant manner, show my discontent for them. Because, like I said, my general understanding of roads and traffic is we all have somewhere we're trying to go. Some of us want to get there faster than others. And maybe when they're upset or they're like honking, they're not really that upset with you, but more so at the fact that wherever they're trying to get to, they're not there as fast as they would like. So I don't take it too seriously. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like others are like share the same view. I didn't know where I put my phone. Oh, it's right here. I was so wrapped up in thought I didn't even think of where my phone had gone. I picked a good time to put up that those windows because that this ambulance is right here. They're always very loud. Well, since Akatsuki Merchant is here, I guess we should start the show, and I can run down the series of sequences that caused this week to be so chaotic and strange and weird and bizarre and I don't want to say freaky, but just kind of not what I would expect. Um, Stupid ambulance. Well, ambulances are loud and they're irritating if you're doing a stream or talking to somebody because they drown you out. But I mean, it happens. Like I figure anytime I'm outside, you're susceptible to hear any kind of noise. You might hear somebody shouting, as you heard with that one guy that was down the street with a little bullhorn. You might hear someone playing music, as you did earlier. Somebody was playing music. That's why I put the windows up. And you might even hear an ambulance as it's racing to save somebody's life. So one way or the other, you're going to end up hearing something, more likely than not. Um, I really wish Megumi would show up, but I guess he's not going to appear today. So I mentioned on Monday that I had this interview right before the stream started, and it was for this job that's like, I guess they're expanding their business. I still don't entirely understand what it is. There's some canvassing involved. I know that's also part of it. And I really hated the interview because it was me and three other people who were being interviewed by this one lady. And she asked all of us the same question. And I didn't really like my answer. I thought my answer was pretty poor. But I also felt like, and part of that was because I had my phone in my hand, like on Zoom, trying to change it to my computer. And it really was, what's the way of putting it? It wasn't properly set up. So I kind of felt weird having to hold the thing and it was all shaky. But I figured, okay, well, whatever. I give one bad answer, but I can make up for it with the coming questions. So this doesn't go over well as far as like after this, she keeps talking and talking and talking until the interview abruptly comes to an end. I go, okay, well, I'm probably not going to get this job. I get a call at the end of the day, as they said they would, right? 5 to 7, that would tell me whether I get the job. And or whether I get a second interview. And I get a second interview against all odds. I'm shocked by it. Because again, I didn't think my answer was that good on the first one. And I have a really pleasant conversation with the man that was in the second interview. I feel like we got along better, and I got to actually respond several times, show off a little more of my character. Um, So but I've had interviews like that before where I thought I did a good job and I heard nothing back. So I'm thinking, okay, well, you know what? I like my responses this time around, but if I don't hear anything back, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over. I'm not gonna be surprised. It's just another day in the hood. In a couple of hours, I get a call from, so I guess it's the lady from Monday or the day before. This on Tuesday, and she says, this other person recommended you. He really liked speaking to you. He thought you were interesting. Da 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 da. We want you to come in for orientation. And at that moment, I go, wow, I had this position that I applied for where I had a really awful first interview, and then I had a second interview that was actually fairly decent, and it looks like I might have actually landed a position here. So the instructions for Wednesday, to give me the address to the place. They tell me bring a pen and a notebook, and I'm like, all right, I'm doing this. So I drive over there, all ready for this thing. They want me to go up to the fourth floor of the building. Um, Now, I want to just kind of paint the visual here for a second. In certain buildings, they have three number rooms. So rooms that have, like, let's say 302, right, written on the wall next to the room, and then that's how you know the room is 302, because there's like a little plaque that says 302 that's next to the room. I go up to the fourth floor and I'm looking for the room that they're telling me to go to, right? I see 403, 405, 407, and I just can't find the one that they are. And I'm like, I think maybe there's something wrong with my eyes. Why am I not able to spot this? Because it's like an early number, so I know when I come up, it should be one of the first ones I see. Um, so I'm looking around and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, maybe they might be further down. Maybe one door leads to the other. It's weird, right? Because I can't find the room, and I know I'm on the right floor because I see all the other fours and 40s and 410 and all the rest of that. So I look on the wall next to this other room, and it says the numbers of the floor of the room I'm looking for, but there's a twist. The numbers. So I said before that usually the numbers are in white letters and they're on this little black tile. The numbers for that room were on the wall, written in either crayon or marker. So the correct room, the room I'm supposed to go to, is the only one on the whole floor that's written in that doesn't have an actual case that it's in where it says the numbers in like an official font. Some idiot wrote the numbers next to the wall and thought everybody would just know where to go. So like, this is already kind of weird, but I go, okay, whatever. I go in there. I'm like 2 minutes away from being late because I'm stumbling around. I always try to get to places early so that I can look around and scope stuff out and not be you know late, because every time you go somewhere late, you just have to imagine that they're going to be like, all right, we're not hiring you because you couldn't even show up early for the interview. What makes you think we're going to, what would make us think reasonably that you're going to show up on time for the actual job? So I go in the room and it's pitch black, um, with the exception of some curtains. Like, the whole room is just dark, and there's some stuff written on the board. There's a couple of rooms that are like in the room, um, but again, it's like it's there's not really anyone there. Like, it's just empty. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, this is weird. Why is the room I'm supposed to go in? I was supposed to have gone in, rather, not have anyone in there. That's kind of strange. But anyways, I start looking around, and I go in there and I look and look, and nobody's there. And I check my time because I'm saying, okay, maybe I got here at the wrong time. They want me to come at 1:30. It's like 1:30 something now. So I'm here on time. The door was open and nobody's there. So I stand there for a second, and it's kind of funny, when I called their number to ask them, hey, where is your room? No one answered. So I don't think to call them back because I'm still waiting for them to call me back from when I called them, looking for the room. At this point, what must have been 10 minutes ago. Uh, so no one calls me back, and I wait for over 20 minutes, and no one shows up. No one comes to the room. Nothing. Just complete empty room for 20 whole minutes. And that's when I decided to leave. So I went from applying to this place to having an interview that I thought went terrible, to having a follow-up interview I thought went really well, to then being invited to go out and have an orientation at the place to start working there, to then showing up to the orientation on time, but then not being met by anyone that was supposedly working there. I don't care what anyone says. These jobs are not serious. They're jokes. Um, to kind of cap off this story, there was an email I received the day that that I went to that interview, and when I went there to the when I looked at the email, rather, it said something about like come in business casual, which is like a really nebulous term. I don't know what that means, but because all these different places, when they don't have a uniform, they try to tell you what you can and can't wear. And I was just thinking to myself, isn't it crazy that like the same place that wants to sit here and even utter a word about a dress code can't even adhere to their own schedule of showing up to their own interview that's on their premises. Nobody thinks that's weird that a place that will sit here and tell you what you can and can't wear is going to be like, well, we know you were scheduled for an interview today, but no one's going to show up. You email us, no response. I emailed them the day that happened, saying, hey, look, I came, no one showed up. I still haven't heard anything back. Now, I told this to one of my older relatives, and they said that they think it was a scam. I said, well, what did they gain out of doing that? Like, what did they gain out of wasting my time? I still can't believe that actually happened. Like, I'm still sitting here just thinking that there was a 3-day saga this week of me applying somewhere and then having 2 interviews there, and then not not only not getting the job, but like not even getting the full or even close to a segment of the orientation that they said I would have if I came to their stupid building. I don't know. I just think that's really weird. Like that doesn't like that whole thing is like just strange. You know, I'm like that really happened. I really went up there and sat in their office for like for 20 minutes and nobody came or showed up. And after I emailed and called them, nobody responded. They had me scheduled for orientation on Wednesday just to not show up themselves on Wednesday. No one thinks that's crazy. I mean, what is that? So I said these are some really strange times that we're dealing with, where businesses feel like you're just, that's why I said everyone just feels like you're an expendable piece of crap that they can waste the time of, they cannot do serious things with. And I am tired of it. And actually, I didn't mention this, but Wednesday's interview was the second interview I had this week. The first one was for this. It's some kind of center where they help children with disabilities. And I've said before that when I was in school, before college cost more than an arm and a leg, I wanted to be a teacher because I've always felt that education is something that's important. I've always thought it's interesting to just kind of tell people about stuff that's happened before. So I felt I had some fairly high hopes for, like, I didn't think I would get it or anything, but I felt like out of any of the jobs that were considered, that one would be the most fulfilling for me on a personal level, just because being able to assist in the development of children is something that I, as someone who wanted to be a parent at one point, very much am interested in. The first problem with that job was how far it was. It's like an hour and a half drive or 30-40 minute drive. Use the freeway, and I used I left 2 hours before so I could just drive regularly because I don't really like taking the freeway that much. But I decided to take it because it looked like I was going to be late. Just going down the regular roads. Like it went from saying I was going to get there. The interview was at 1 o'clock. It went from your estimated arrival is 12:41, then it was 12:46, then it was 12:50. I was like, all right, let me just bite the bullet and go over here. So I went over there and I see this sign on the window. It says you need a mask. And I called the lady in the office. I'm like, hey, I don't have a mask. Oh, it's fine. You don't need one. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, why, if I don't need one, why do you guys have a sign that says I need one? Like it would be like if I said people who come into my business need to wear, I don't know, a tie. And then you're like, oh man, I don't have a tie. I'm like, well, okay, it's fine. You don't need one. Then why'd you put that sign up? Like that's already something that's going to throw you off, because you really do like say, oh man, I don't have this thing that they want me to have. So I go to the, what do you call it? I go inside, and just like the other place, although this takes place before, so I'm telling you stuff in backwards order, but just like the other place, they have this building that's several stories high. The place I'm supposed to go into is on the first floor, and I don't even like insulting myself that much, but I felt very dumb here. They have each room with the 3 numbers of what the room is, right? The room number for the place I was supposed to go into was by a staircase and had a little arrow pointing at it. And then there's a room on the side of the staircase. Now, because the arrow was pointing at the staircase while also pointing at the room next to the staircase, I thought it wanted me to go upstairs. So I ended up walking upstairs thinking that one of those places would be the place. Now, only when I came back down did I realize that the arrow was pointing at the room and the staircase just happened to be in the way. I felt really dumb. I felt like a very, very not smart person. I actually felt like a couple of my relatives. I'm not going to lie. I feel like that happens a lot. If I've never been somewhere before, there are like certain things where because I'm there looking for something, I'll just stumble and not entirely be sure of what's going on. So I go in there. I have an interview with the I guess it might be the manager, head teacher. I don't know what their position was, but I have an interview with them. It goes, I would say it went fairly well. But as I was leaving from there, I started thinking about some things, and some things I'll probably get demonetized for saying, but I'm going to say them. I thought about how when I went in there and I looked at I only saw 2 employees, the lady that interviewed me and this other person. The other person, by the way, her voice is so sensual that, I mean, I'm not joking when I say she should work for some kind of like phone line for people looking for pleasure. I mean, her voice is very, very nice. But I was thinking about it. I said, so I saw 2 people there, both female and both, let's just say, of non-minority status. And I was also thinking about how, and I don't even like jotting down statistics, but this is a fact. Most people that do bad things to kids, and when I say bad things, I'm talking about depraved acts, are men. And on top of that, I don't believe, I'll put it to you like this. I am perfectly fine with the way I handled myself. I feel like I answered all the questions. I tried to be personable, etc. But I will not get that job more likely than not because I think there's a certain stigma around men that are instructors of children. And more specifically, there's a certain stigma around, my unpopular color. Because I'm just pointing out that, look, I didn't see anyone of any minority status there. So I'm not going to be surprised if I don't get that job. I don't usually like to mention stuff like that, but I'm just going to call a spade a spade. The place looked pretty non-integrated, if if I'm just telling the truth. So I hope I'm wrong. They didn't tell me what day I can expect to hear back from them, although I don't. Again, I'm not expecting to because of how what I expect the results will be. But I'm just saying that was not exactly a pretty circumstance. I don't know. I try so hard to be positive. When it's like I'm telling you, when I go to an interview and when I go to like any place where it's like for job related or just trying to have some fun, I try to be nice to the people that work there. When I'm asked a question, I try to directly answer it. Um, I try to what's the way of putting it? Convey a desire to want to be there. You know, to want to be part of the process. Someone who to come off as someone who actually is. This isn't just about a check. This is like, hey, this is something that I actually could have some fun with. Because at every job I've worked, I've always tried to have fun with it. The one I had the hardest time having fun was when I was at that restaurant because it's just you sitting there with the manager who's kind of a jerk, and maybe there's like one or two other employees that are decent, but they're not. It's just a lot of. It's how do I put this? I try to be nice when I'm working somewhere. I try to be positive. I try to be when I go to an interview personable, but I will not pretend that if I don't get that job, I won't think there's certain factors out of my control that played into it. And look, I don't feel that way about working at a retailer. I don't feel that way about um, any other position I've applied for except that one. I think there is a gender bias that those people may either consciously or subconsciously have, and I will not be surprised if I am not selected. I'll be disappointed because that job did seem kind of interesting, um, and more fulfilling than pretty much any of the other ones I've had up to this point. But I won't be shocked if it doesn't go the way I want. There's a statistic about uh, I think it's 80% of teachers are women. I have to go and look at the statistic up again, but I know a majority of teachers, like an overwhelming majority, are female. It's a big number, which to me is just whatever. I don't really see it in any disparaging terms. I don't say that to insult anyone or to make any nasty remarks. It's just me pointing out that there are certain things where if I don't get a job, I may be tempted to say, okay, was it really me being like a bad person that caused me to not get the position, or was it something a little more out of my control? Was it completely just me missing the mark, or was it something else? I think in that instance it'll be something else. Hey Jim, how are you doing? It's been a really irritating week. Um, Cutting the grass. I saw a lot of grass earlier today, but I was just talking about all these different jobs I had applied for and the little circles that they had me running around in throughout the week. And you missed the story. I told the story of how there was a job where Monday I did the interview and figured that I probably wouldn't get the job because I only got to answer back to the person interviewing me one time. Then I had a second interview where it went way better, to where I was apparently supposedly hired on Tuesday, and they said, "Hey, come in tomorrow for orientation." I showed up at the building. I couldn't even find their room when I went there. They told me the room number, but I couldn't find it because each room is numbered with little white letters in a little black box. except theirs was their room numbers were written in crayon or marker on the wall, like a child put that together. I step into the room, completely empty. The whole place is empty, and I sit there. I'm here on time, mind you. They want me to be there at like 1:30. I was there even before that to scope the place out. I go up in there. I sit down for like 20 minutes. Nobody shows up. I leave, and I called them and sent them a message during the happenings of this, and have not received anything else. So it was just a complete waste of time. Stuff like that really does feel like something out of a cartoon or a movie. Like, I can't even believe that you would have a place offer you a job and they're like, come tomorrow for 2 or 3 hours. And then you show up on time and then they can't even show up. And these shoe shiners had the nerve to tell somebody to dress in business casual. It's like, no, don't sit here talking about what I wear when you guys can't even show up to your own meeting. It's like, instead of trying to police what people put on, how about you actually show up to the thing you said you were going to appear at? It was weird, man. I told you this. I try so hard to just. Oh my God! I like you. You really could argue that trying to get a job is the equivalent of having one. Like, your job is trying to get one, because they have you ripping and running from street to street, city to city, freeway to freeway. I went to an interview on Wednesday. That thing was a 2 hour, like almost 2 hour drive from my house, hour and a half, whatever. I get on the freeway, it's like 40 minutes, and then I get to the front sign, and they're talking about you have to have a mask to come in here, even though I don't know of anywhere currently where they're having you do that. I call the lady in the front desk. She says, "Oh no, you don't have to have one." Dude, I wish you could have heard that woman's voice. She sounds like she should be on one of those hotlines, you know. Hi, my name is such and such. Sorry to hear. Well, I was sorry to be there. I'm like, I came on time, showed up right when they said they wanted me to, and then they're not even here. They didn't even appear. I was more disappointed when they didn't show up than when you were when I didn't do the documentary on China relations. Because I know when I didn't do that, you unsubscribed, you wrote hateful comments, very mean-spirited remarks. You know, you were flabbergasted. Don't worry, it's still coming. Like I said, this week has been very busy. I haven't been able to do much of anything. Like, I get in front of the camera and talk for a little bit, and that's it. Because every day this week, it's been driving here, there, or the other place. Heck, even today, the reason the stream is later than usual is because I went somewhere earlier. I went somewhere. I had a lot of fun. Did you try the post office? I have a relative that works there. I, it's funny you mentioned that. I went to, I think it was supposed to be a job fair or job interview for the post office back in August. I remember what month it was, because it was like I did a stream at 6 in the morning to go to that thing, and I kid you not, I thought I was going to be sat down, interviewed with. Instead, all they did was hand me some papers and tell me to fill them out and bring them back up there. And I was like, I'm not about to sit here and spend another $30 from on Uber just to go and deliver some papers so that I can be one of the 500 people you guys don't say anything back to. But see, they didn't. They made it sound like, oh, it was BS. And I didn't get to mention this before you showed up. I went to a job fair on Thursday, and was it Thursday or was it? Oh yeah, it was Thursday, because yeah, I now remember. I went to one on Thursday, and it was way better than that. Everyone had a little booth. You ask them questions about the job, they tell you what the job is, tell you how to apply. Way superior to that crap from August. Isn't that crazy? They want people to work for them, but then they can't even be like bothered to actually sit there and talk to you. I don't like them either. I went there because listen, Jem, you should know at this point that I have this group of relatives who are just not sympathetic toward yours truly, and they blame me for pretty much everything. Right? If you don't have a job, it's your fault. Even though you apply over and over, you must not want to work anywhere because that's people who don't want to work anywhere. That's what they do. They apply to places over and over again. So when I would rather have not gone because I already had filled out like 20 applications or 20 plus since this past Thursday. But I went because I had a person who sent me that thing and I wanted to at least say, okay, I went there so now they can shut up and be mad, not be mad for like one day at least, which turned out to not be true because they were mad today, yesterday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, every day. The job market is messed up. The economy has no mercy for young men. No, and if you don't have a support system of people that care about you and are willing to help you out and give you a place to live while you're trying to deal with this stuff, you are screwed, man. I tell you, and I was also talking about this as well. One of my pet peeves of the current job market is that we're in such a bizarro time where at this point you can't even just get a job anymore. Like what I mean by that is you probably are familiar with this, Jim. You apply somewhere, you have an interview, and then you're hired. Maybe you have to fill out some paperwork here or there, but you're like pretty much you're hired. Now we've gotten to a point where if you want to work at this job, you need a TB test. You need to make sure that you're vaccinated. You need to make sure that you have a valid license. You need to and you're like, damn, all this stuff I have to have, and I haven't even made one goddamn cent from this job. I ended up working at a carpet store when I was 18. Did you have a good time while you were there? Was it fun? I'm not asking that like as a joke. I mean, did you enjoy the job? Because when I worked the retailer, I had a pretty fun time outside of like the rude customers. Oh, people hate learning. I mean, learning is that's like a really toxic thing at this point. You take somebody out to learn something, you might as well be committing a cardinal sin. And who do you think you are, trying to get somebody to know about history and what happened before their time and how things used to be? Who do you think you are? Oh man, yeah, I'm sure it was real expensive. No, I'm just kind of like saddened by the way things are because if I could wave a wand and have a job at my own place, that would have already happened. You think I'm kidding? There this would have all been different. A Persian rich, Jesus, 21,000. That's like a whole year and a half month of rent. God, man. Oh, don't admit that in my chat because then they're gonna say that this is if when you say stuff like that, YouTube will flag it and be like, this is the crime stream and he's organizing his hitmen and his thieves and all his looters and robbers to go and mess with people and we need to put an end to him streaming. He's not encouraging good etiquette. Company out of business years ago. Hey, at least you kept a souvenir. No, Jem, if I really do that China part and then I do the Iran part, that I hope you understand that's going to end up turning into a full scale foreign policy documentary like that, like a whole hour plus, where I just take all the parts and stick them together, and then give my commentary over it, and then we can do the domestic stuff and make that its own video, and then fuse them, and then we'll have a whole documentary on that presidency. It'll be really cool. Imagine doing all the presidents in backwards order. They're like, "What do you plan to make after this?" And I'm like, "We're going right back to the beginning." China relations is extremely complicated. Oh, I know. Um, you know, the one China policy, the stuff with where China gets the Chinese government gets mad at the U.S.'s officials if they go to Taiwan or me. That I want to mention it because I think this is really interesting. Just a few days ago, the president of is it the president of Thailand or of Taiwan, rather, the president of Taiwan gave a speech at the Reagan Library, and then in response, China sanctioned the library. No, look, the reason I'm bringing it up is because, well, I love me some libraries. I like going to them and seeing all the stuff there, but also because as far as I can remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's never happened before, where a library was like a U.S. federal library was sanctioned by a foreign government because they allowed somebody to give a speech there. I can't think of any instance where that's occurred. And look, I don't know the full history of every library, but that was crazy, man. Dude, that almost makes me want to go up to the Reagan Library, because I've been there before. At one time when I was in 10th grade, go up there and like interview everyone there and be like, hey, so how do you feel being at a library that's been sanctioned by China? What's your opinion on this? Just go up there and talk to some of the staff about how crazy that is. I would like to go to the let me see, how far is the Reagan Library from me? Maybe I'll do it next weekend or the weekend after that. I can't do it tomorrow, definitely, because I just feel so tired right now. Let me see here. Okay, without highways, that's 2 hours, and then with highways, that's an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, no, it's not. It's not 5 hours. No, I told you when I was in Alabama by the freeway, stand at that the library will lose. Oh, of course, because I mean, you know how much stuff we make in China: shoes made in China, shirts, pants, baseballs. Like they're gonna lose a whole bunch of money. But I was gonna tell you that of course it'll still be funded anyway because people are gonna keep going to it. But I was gonna tell you when I was in Alabama, I was only there for one full day before I got up that Saturday and went to the Carter Library. And man, when I typed in, like as I was in the parking lot, Jimmy Carter Presidential Library and Museum, and it said 2 hour drive, take this freeway. I got on there and hit the pedal. It felt so good to go down to Freedom Park, go up that hill, and be in front of the building. Man, that was nice. I went up there twice. The first time was to actually like go and look at everything that was there. The second time was just to take some pictures of all the stuff. There's me sitting in front of it. I took a few shots. It was nice. Well, yeah, well, knowing that Alabama was right next to Georgia, I knew one of the main things I went to when I went down there was go to that library. That was a surefire desire of mine from the second that plane landed, because the layover flight first arrived in Atlanta, and I was only there for like an hour, and I didn't have a car, so I couldn't go over there anyway. But I knew I would be going back over there for that. So what's kind of crazy is out of that whole week, the only days where it was just me in Alabama were Sunday and Monday. Every other day of that week, it was me in Georgia. It was a really nice looking place, I'll tell you. Lady in the front was nice. She actually surprised me because when I came back on Tuesday, she recognized. She was like, "You're back," and said that she recognized me because I was, I guess, one of the taller people that had shown up there. And that surprised me because I mean, when you work somewhere like that, you probably see a whole bunch of people. So I was shocked. They are nice in the south. Oh yeah, I didn't have any problems with anybody down there. I'm you won't see me saying a bad word. Like I think I told you that there's like this idea of over there being this intolerable place to live. And I said, they have some right wing governments that I don't like, but as far as the people, they're not any worse than the ones out here, really. Well, I mean, Akatsuki merchant, you don't have to tell me that. My grandparents were Southerners, so I, I've got a pretty decent idea of like what of how of the hospitality of them. Yeah, I felt really close to driving past Georgia into South Carolina, but I decided not to because no one I know is over there right now. Oh yeah, I'll definitely end up going to Maine at some point, so we can because remember, Jem, we have that project where we're going to fundraise for the Susan Collins Senatorial Library and Museum where they keep all her papers and pictures. Although, of course, you probably want to do the Joe Manchin one instead. Some senators do have that, right? Where they have their own library. Like I know in North Carolina, Sam Irvin and Jesse Helms have theirs. Dude, when Manchin was talking about running for president, I was like almost falling out my chair laughing. He'll get like 5 votes. It's like, hey, here's the guy that killed every major policy proposal that the president wanted. Yeah, let's vote for him. New Yorkers are the worst, in my opinion, just rude and abrasive folk. Well, I told you that she's a really interesting figure in terms of the current political landscape. She's a Republican in the Senate that supports abortion rights and gay marriage. There's like three of them that support that stuff. Um, I feel like if the rest of her party had her positions on even basic issues like that, we would have a much different government. Like you wouldn't see the gridlock, you wouldn't see the lack of action on pretty much anything substantial. I think she's very reasonable, and I hope that because what she's in her fifth term, I hope she gets a sixth term in 3 years. I'll donate. I'd even campaign if I lived over there. Let me see. Yeah, Collins is great. I think she's terrific. Same thing with Murkowski. They're I'd say the two of them are like just the only them and Rand. I'd say are the only ones out of that whole caucus that I can stand at all. Hey, Akatsuki Merchant, you didn't see the video, but Green went to New York, New York, and said that it reminded her of Gotham City. I'm just imagining that when the lights go out, you hear the like, what's that? How did the theme go? Where where like where the sky turns red and you hear like the. She said she was being censored because people were whistling. So how is that censorship if you're speaking and someone talks over you? How are you being? Whatever, man. I'm so tired of this. Oh, Hawley is. You know what? Um, he's not good, but how I explain this. I didn't like McCaskill. I thought she was a joke. She was someone who was just too right wing for me. Massive Hillary backer. So I wasn't sad to see her go. I really wasn't. In fact, I'd argue that if things were the way that they are now, and she was there and not Hawley, she'd be doing the same stuff he does. As far as like she would be in that mansion block that always messes stuff up and doesn't want to vote for things and like is even worse than the other side because the GOP people will tell you they're not doing things to help you, but if they have a D by their name, they go, oh, it's all right if they block stuff and screw up government. Yeah, your breakdown was good. They are allowed to protest. She could have gotten a private hall. She was too fit. Dude, if I was her and I was really afraid of people messing with me, I would have done what I'm doing now. I would have just gone in my car or had Wi-Fi at the hotel. Like there's plenty of places you can protest and not be out in a public setting. Because when you're in a public setting, um, that pretty much means anyone can come around and make a noise or what, and you can't really do much of anything about it. So that was just her trying to, grandstand. I'm standing with the president. But really, if she actually wanted to be heard and deliver a coherent message that was intelligent and didn't like want to worry about, oh, somebody might interrupt me, she would have just gone to a Starbucks or her hotel room and said, all right, guys, I'm gonna deliver my remarks from here so nobody can mess up anything. You know about the mayor threatened her. The mayor didn't threaten her. The mayor said she spreads misinformation, and I think the other part of it was lies, and told her to be on her best behavior, and that's a threat. Now, if he said, "Get the hell out of my city," then yeah. But dude, I don't even like that stupid mayor, and I had to defend him from her. Like that's crazy. They make people don't even like each other have to like join arms. That reminded me of when Robert Novak. I don't know if you remember him, Jim. That was this conservative commentator. He used to talk trash about Carter all the time, but when Carter put out that book on Israel Palestine in 2006 or 2005, one of those years, he was one of the few right wingers that defended Carter and was like, hey, he's telling the truth about this conflict. Israel's government is an apartheid state. They treat Palestinians like crap. I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of like strange bedfellows that come from stuff like this where I have to defend a mayor I don't even like from lies by another politician. But you know what? I should stop talking because, Jem, I already know you're going to be part of her presidential campaign in 2028 or 32. So let me just shut up because I don't want you to get offended. I know you're trying to make her the second person from Georgia to successfully have a White House bid. So I'll shut up soon. You know what's funny? The stuff for Carter and King are like right next to each other. They're both in Atlanta. Imagine the dude. Imagine like the because the thing about Carter and King is they're connected in many ways. They both grew up poor. They both have a Nobel Peace Prize. King's family actually backed Carter for president in '76. Martin Luther King Sr. and Coretta Scott. So what's really comedic is that imagine if the three major political figures from Georgia are Carter, King, and Green. Like they end up building something for her out there. Oh my God. It's like one of them fought against segregation in the 60s, another one championed human rights in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s and 2010s, and the other one lied about an election, and that was pretty much her claim to fame. That's the next hero from that state, because she really is like the current face of Georgia politics. I don't hear anyone talking about the Kemp or Warnock or Ossoff or any of these other people. She's the face. That's politicians. Oh yeah, Carter is definitely underappreciated. You know, one of my dreams actually, because I have a lot of books on him, would be to make the ultimate Carter documentary. And I'm talking like stuff you wouldn't even you could go on somewhere like WikiPiss and they wouldn't even mention this. I'm talking about a documentary where there's material from his books, books written about him, his wife's books. It would be some you that dude. This thing, if I made a documentary like that, I would download it and put it in like a damn zip file somewhere. Like have like a thousand copies of it just all over the place. That thing would need to spread like wildfire. It would be so important because like the amount of research would be unprecedented. Because sometimes with historians, people that write books, they might do like a little thing where they go to some place and talk about the book, but I'm talking a full-on, stretched out, detail for detail documentary. That's something that never been done before. I think his low point was the Iran hostage crisis. He did not understand the Iranians. He did not understand what was happening there. Yeah. His advisors were bad too. When I think about it, like who from his administration really was memorable? Like I've heard a lot of stuff about Kissinger, for example, but nobody really talks about Cyrus Vance. I know Mondale did a lot for the VP position by having the office in the West Wing. But really, when he gets mentioned, it's usually just him losing every state except his own against Reagan that people talk about. They don't really speak about his actual career, which is very unfortunate because he, was someone that mattered. Although I guess I should shut up because, you know, I know that Jem, the way you are, the main person from Minnesota that you think is important and should have their own series of books and documentaries is Bachman. That's your actual hero. It's so funny to think that she won the Iowa straw poll just to get like 4 or 5% of the vote and drop out in Iowa in the actual election. Don't worry, you haven't been seeing that much of her in recent years. Like she, at this point, all she really does is just go on talk shows and you know brag about everyone's favorite 45 and that, just nothing, man. She's whatever. At least with someone like Gingrich, as much as I am not his fan, I could say he's like an important part of history because it was with him that the Republicans finally got the House back after 42 years. Trump would not touch her with the pole. You know what? Well, I'm not saying he would. I'm just saying that she praises him like to an insane degree for someone who's not even, I don't even think she's met him is what's crazy to me. Like, he doesn't even like have anything to do with her. And she's just like, our president, let me do my impression voice. Our president is so good and he's so nice. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just weird. Dude, my favorite story about Gingrich is like the saga of the three wives, where he married his high school teacher, who he apparently was in love with, right, for some time, then left her to start dating some broad that was like 20 something years younger than him, because according to him, his original wife was not pretty enough to be first lady, and left her while she had cancer. Dude, it doesn't get any scummier than that. Newt the third. Dude, that is really slimy. Akatsuki Merchant says our politicians are clowns. Oh, he's been watching too much Jimmy Dore. My favorite Dore rant ever was the one from the Standing Rock protester video. It was like, you want to know why the Democrats lost? Because they're clowns who don't stand for anything. It's hard to argue that. I'm not joking. I'm having a real hard time arguing his point. Well, I told you that their number one goal is to just keep their job. It's to keep their job. And it's like this. If you're a reporter, your main goal is to have access to people. That's why when politicians go for interviews on CNN and Fox and all the rest of these places, very seldom do you see an actual tough, hard-hitting interview where they're asking them like questions that are like difficult to formulate an answer to, or that might otherwise be seen as, combative. And if you're a politician, your number one goal is just to keep your position. Oh, I'm not saying it's not stagnation. I'm just telling you that that's like, if I entered this stuff as someone who has no corporate donors, who is not looking to be involved in these things for the rest of my life, I just would like to have one term at the very least. It actually would be based around helping people. But if you're someone who wants to have a career in this stuff, it's all about making friends and not holding anybody's feet to the fire. The reporters saved the hard question for enemy world leaders. Well, yeah, but that's different because they follow mainstream propaganda, right? So if you listen to them, Kim Jong-un is the scariest person on earth, right? He's gonna send a nuke tomorrow, and it's like, in actuality, he's a guy who is in charge of a country that he's not that nice to, right? But it worships him anyway, and whatever he does there really has no effect on us. You better change that vocabulary, Jim. They might actually think that there's interviews of him, taking these people out. Dude, my favorite thing about him in recent years was when they thought he was sick and that his sister was going to take over as the leader. I'm like, you guys are so like obsessed with the female gender that you're going to sit here and like worship the possible next dictator of a country just because of their gender. Like, really? Now I could see, getting excited was next to her and did not say hi. I remember from the documentary. I cannot believe the ridiculous words gushing out of the mouth of the vice president, the political dummy. My favorite thing is that they always talk about how weak the liberals and the Democrats are, but then they canceled meeting with North Korea because they said something they didn't like. They called the VP a political dummy. That's strength. Refusing to meet with the leader of another country because they insulted your VP. They called him a mean name. You know how much nasty stuff Trump has called people? Are you serious? The war of words. high school girls in the clique. Oh, they need to get a new one. Oh man, it's been a hell of a day and a hell of a week too. Our current diplomat is a clown. Oh, Blinken. Well, he only got the job because he's Biden's right hand guy. That's his buddy. So he didn't get it because he has some giant. You know what I'm talking about? It's like it was just him rewarding his friend. Because personally, I would have preferred, as crazy as this sounds, probably someone like Susan Rice or maybe Gabbard, because Gabbard endorsed Biden. Now she hates him, but she endorsed him when he ran. But you know what I'm saying, right? That there's plenty of people who have actual foreign policy experience or experience as diplomats that could have functionally worked better than Blinken. Dude, I'm just imagining Gabbard as Secretary of State. That would have been so cool. Because then she wouldn't be on Fox talking about why she's leaving the woke Democrats. That would have been way better than the current trajectory of her career. They're talking about she's pivoting right so that she can get picked as Trump's VP. I'm like, he doesn't talk about her. He'd sooner pick what's that crazy lady at Arizona Lake? He'd rather pick her than or what's the other one? Noam, whatever. Like he'll pick one of them before he picks her. She would be great. Calm down, the old man. Dude, Gabbard really just, I don't know what the deal with her is. Like, she ran for president and after that left the house and just kind of sits on TV all day talking trash about her own party that she left. I don't know. It's just weird, man. She a married woman. Oh, by the way, have you noticed that more and more people seem like more? I'm not even trying to make this like a gender thing, but I'm noticing more and more famous, or I guess people in the political sphere are getting divorced. Because Palin's was married from '88 up until 2020, and then she got divorced. Conway, what I'm talking about, the counselor, the president, the one that the alternative facts. She was married for like 20 something years as well, and now is getting divorced from her husband. Trump Jr. was married for at least 10 years, I would say, and then he got divorced from his wife, and now he's dating Guilfoyle off of Fox News, the former wife of the current governor of my state. Have you noticed that more and more people are getting divorced? Because as far as I can tell, if you look at most major politicians, they tend to stay married to one person throughout their whole life, or they get married to a second person and then that's it. Very seldom do you see someone who's been married more than 2 times or even been divorced, period. Because isn't it something I read that most divorces are in the first 5 years of marriage or something. So to have somebody who's been married for 20 years or 30 years be like, all right, this is inconceivable, we can't do this. That's strange to me. People have more options to connect on. Well, you know what I'm saying, right? That if you look at the general history of this stuff and the people in politics, divorce really wasn't a thing. It's if I sat here and just thought about senators and governors and congressmen, I'd be hard pressed to think of more than maybe 5 or 6 that have been married more than once. Or, for example, with Biden, he's been married twice, but that was because his first wife passed away, tragic accident. You know what I'm saying? If it's a circumstance like that, it makes sense. But a lot of people are just getting married and divorced and get married so much. You know what I'm talking about? It's just something that you didn't see before in this profession. Well, think about it. The social norms have changed. Oh, yeah. I wish they would change that norm about wearing the damn suit because I'll never understand why women get to sit here and wear all types of different stuff and look very distinct and unique, but every guy has to put on the same stupid white shirt with the black or blue blazer and pants. Went from a handful of a handful of a handful to millions. I mean, that's why the Republicans are never going to win the popular vote again, because you can't be anti-LGBT and get a majority of votes. You can still win, because stupid electoral college, you win certain states, but as far as like getting the popular vote, that's done. Trump is the first president in American history that won, that like ran twice and never got the popular vote. He's the only one at all of them. And that should tell you something, that like what is a democracy when the person who got less votes both times still ended up winning once anyway? Can't forget the Q. Dude, it's so crazy to think that after the older Bush had his blowout of Dukakis in 88, it's just been getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Like in 88, he wins 40 states, the older Bush. Then you get this weird election in 92 that has Perot in there, and it like, he takes some of his votes, whatever. And Clinton gets the popular vote. And they got crazy. The person who won the landslide, well, man, he raised it because he knew that we would have a deficit. I'm not about to talk trash about the older Bush. We can talk all kinds of evil about his son. I'll be the first one to do that, but I like the older one. So, I'll admit he didn't keep his pledge, but he did something pretty serviceable for people by not keeping it. But anyways, I was just pointing out that it's crazy how he was elected to a first term in a landslide, and then for the attempt at the second one, he doesn't come anywhere close to that. Man, they really only care about their own personal gain. Yeah, that's why a lot of people get into this stuff. I mean, think about how crazy this is. You can be a governor of a small state like Iowa or Wyoming, and maybe you have some salary of like 200,000, 300,000, however much they make, right? It's not, it's not cheap. It's not a little bit of money, but it's enough to where over the several years you can like become a millionaire, right? And after doing this, you end up being in bed with Wall Street and Big Pharma and all these other companies that helped you get elected and do their favors. And now what do? They have you go around giving paid speeches where you're making $1 million every time you talk, or 500,000. And now suddenly you, the governor of this small state with only a salary of 300,000, are now one of the richest people in the world. Look at Biden. When Biden became vice president, and you can look this up, he was one of the least wealthiest members of Congress. He had like 27,000 as his net worth. Money that any normal person would have, like a normal middle class person would have, right? Now he's he's like a 10 million, 11 million, 20 million, like somewhere around that number, even higher. And he didn't get rich because he invented the cure to cancer and sold it. No, it wasn't the books. It was him giving those paid speeches after he left the vice presidency that set him on course. This is what they do. They run for office, and after they leave, they enrich themselves either by becoming a lobbyist or paid speaker. Obama's doing it right now. He's been out of office for 6 years. Do you see him as a politician who no longer has to worry about getting reelected? Do you see him rallying support for ending homelessness or a jobs program or single payer or free college? No, you don't. He's following the Clinton model of going around, giving paid speeches, getting richer, and then, I mean, this is what they do. There's only one of them in the last 30 plus years 40 plus years that hasn't done that, and you know who it is. Up until a few years ago, you could go right over to his Sunday school and take a picture picture with them. There was only one that didn't go around giving paid speeches. After they left the White House, they were building. He was building homeless houses for homeless people. There's only one that went the direction of helping people after they left. Yep, and I didn't even have to say his name. You knew who it was. I'm not even joking. If I could, I would take 10 years off my own lifespan and give it to him. I'm not even saying that like to be that's not a little like minor thing I would say about anybody. But he's done a lot of stuff for people that just to this day continues to go underappreciated. Dude, it's so sad how they win this office, they become the most powerful person in the land, and then they use it to make themselves get some more coins. Oh yeah, they had some kind of shooting at or killing at the Gaza Strip. I didn't pay much attention to it because really, I'm just at a point with Israel where I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, and we don't have people over here who are ever going to actually look at this stuff critically. They're going to just keep smearing everyone that speaks out in favor of Palestinians as having a problem with Jewish people, even though we don't. So I'm probably just not going to make a video about it. Netanyahu is like a demonic spirit. Will he ever go away? No, him and Putin are pretty much of the same cloth, where they'll keep finding ways to get in power for the rest of their lives. It's very sad, man. But you know what? At the very least, sentiment towards them is becoming more favorable. Like they've done polls that show more people are becoming receptive to their plight. So I think we're going to get to a point where it's not going to happen with the GOP and a lot of those right wing Democrats because they're they get financed to sit here by AIPAC and like pretend that anytime you speak in favor of Palestinians, you're speaking of some like basically to smear us, right? Anyone that's in favor of them. But I think eventually, and it might not come for another 10 or 20 years, we'll get a majority and we can actually stop supporting the Israeli government in their domestic terror. Yeah, people are seeing what's going on social media. See, this isn't like the 80s or 90s where they show you something on TV and then, I guess I have to believe it. Now you're seeing it live. You're seeing the stuff that's happening. There's no narrative. There's no filter. You get to watch the story unfold and decide for yourself, is this the right way to treat people? Should we act like this towards our fellow human being? And I really like that because it's allowing for people to see something in an unbiased way, or at least in a way that it might be biased as far as in their Palestinians' favor, but it still is showing you something that's not edited, that, like you can't make up somebody getting bombed, Well, yeah, but my thing is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict's been going on way longer. And the thing is, you won't get as badly gone after if you speak out in favor of not being involved in Ukraine. Because remember, DeSantis said, it's a territorial dispute. Yeah, he got a little bit of blowback, but he's still polling in second place. So, way, way longer. But I don't know, Jim. Sometimes I really can't tell what side of the fence you're on. Because you sit here and you talk trash about AOC and Omar and Tlaib and Presley, but then you at the same time are also saying you want to see me run, and I have views that are more in line with them than with some of your other favorite characters like Congresswoman Green or Bobart or what? Let me think of another one. I'm not going to mention Stefanik because they're trying to push her, but it's not working. Oh, where they fired the two what do you call it? The state senators, yeah. Well, Jim, I'm a progressive, and you might not agree with my beliefs that people should actually be able to join unions to stop a company from screwing them over. You might have a problem with me wanting people to have health care. You might really detest me thinking that we should have a jobs program so people who are unemployed can actually have some work that they don't have to jump through a million hoops to get. I don't want to offend you. I don't want to risk alienating you. I have no issues with helping my fellow Americans. That whole ordeal was crazy. Please cut the defense budget. Dude, that thing just balloons. Like, dude, that's why I say I live in the twilight zone, because imagine living in a country where they tell you that it costs too much to give people to raise minimum wage from $7 to $10 or 11 or 12 or 15, but it doesn't cost too much to spend 500 billion or more every single year on the military. So giving people an extra, what, doubling their salary from 7 to 14 or 15 is too much. But hundreds of billions on the military is not. Make it make sense. Need to consolidate some agencies. Oh yeah, well that a lot of libertarians are like, let's cut the education department, let's cut the energy department. I'm like, you guys got on my nerves. Like, because what is the point of federal departments for these different policy positions? To signify their importance. So the education department, which was created by Carter, is supposed to show that education is a major issue in America. It's something that is so significant that there's a whole federal policy and department based around it. And they're like, well, let's not indoctrinate people. Let's, God, they drive me crazy with that, because they don't care about education. No, I'm saying that, like, we can go through GOP candidates and politicians, and they say they support cutting it. Cruz said he supported cutting it. Trump said he supported cutting it. Reagan said he supported cutting it. Now, of course, they failed, or they haven't made any attempts to, but it's like they really believe that a federal department that signifies that education is one of the most important issues is just government overreach. It shouldn't exist. It's too much. That's crazy as hell. And remember, at the same time as they're telling you that the federal government shouldn't be involved in, state to state education, they're the same ones who support a guy running for president, referring to the governor of Florida, who banned books. You want to talk about indoctrination, and you're banning novels? Dude, go look it up. They banned Rosa Parks' biography. They acted like her biography was Mein Kampf. I mean, that's nuts. Listen, I don't like Reagan. I don't like the younger Bush. I'm really not a fan of Clinton or Obama. And you already know how I feel about Trump. But let me tell you something. If they put out books, and they've all written books at different points, and you see them in a library or at some preschool, middle school, high school, I would not support getting rid of those, because those are historical texts that, whether I agree or disagree with the people who wrote them, and a lot of times I do disagree, I think you should have the right to read from different authors and make your own damn mind up about stuff. Just like if at a high school they have Ben Shapiro books or Mark Levin books, or well, O'Reilly's books are largely not as right wing, but you know, Bill O'Reilly. If they have any of these people, I'm letting it stay. You should be able to read that stuff, or Laura Ingraham books. You should be able to read that stuff and draw your own conclusion. I mean, I'm just saying it just feels like we all have biases, but even if we state our bias, it doesn't automatically mean someone will agree with our position. So to sit here and be like, all right, we need to ban this stuff so kids aren't indoctrinated. Well, kids still can make up their own mind about stuff. I'm just saying, I think they're doing a really dangerous game. Banning books is really stupid to me. It's stupid. It's dangerous. And it's like a lot of the right wingers love doing that. Because there was a story in Arkansas where they were trying to ban, or they did ban, Howard Zinn's books about the history of the United States. And it's like they're not banning guns, but they're banning books. and our government isn't a joke. They're not going to ban the thing that actually kills people. And we're not even talking about like banning all guns, but like, semi-automatics, assault stuff, the specific ones that do the most damage in the shortest amount of time. And it's like they won't ban any guns, but they'll ban a whole bunch of books. And people don't think that's weird. It's like, I guess that's just the way things are. God, man. The U.S. is run by some very strange, upside down people. Like the decision making process that they have is really sad. The thought process, the logic, it's all just backwards, I don't know what's wrong with people. Oh, God. They banned the David statue. Oh, David statue, rather. Well, they've been trying to rename and ban a whole bunch of stuff. Remember that one time they destroyed that George Washington statue? He owned slaves. I'm like, okay, maybe you guys, if you have a problem with him having a statue, you can perhaps vote to, get rid of it instead of destroying it like we're in a third world country where we just destroy anything we don't like. I'm just saying, I think there's a way to do things when it comes to changing the names of stuff. Like I'm not against that. If people have decided that person is not worth remembering or they shouldn't be remembered by having something named after them, I get that. But it still needs to be done in a way that is reflective of a democracy. You have to have a vote on it. You have to have people actually have some kind of way to show that the majority of them do not want this anymore. You can't just go up and destroy something and, we have to appease you because, you wanted to express yourself. Oh, I hope next week is better than this one. I really do. It's been a really crazy last couple of days with a bunch of job interviews and just not really fun, just people just kind of acting crazy. It's like, oh, look, I have a belief and I'm gonna impose upon you it. It's like, all right. Well, I guess I'll get off of here because I'm pretty tired. I still got to go up and get this stupid thing for this person. So, um, thanks for showing up, Jim, Akatsuki Merchant. I will be back on, most likely on Monday. I can't imagine me not coming back, but it's been such a crazy and hectic last couple of days that you never know. Uh, who was here earlier? Grand Zeal? Yeah. So, thanks for showing up and have a good rest of your weekend. I will see you again on most likely on Monday. I think I can say that for certain.